I have been flying the crap out of this DJI Neo for just over 24 hours, and that short amount of time is thanks to the fact that this is 100% non-sponsored by DJI or anybody else. No one is paying me for this video, no one sent me this drone for free, and most importantly, everything here was bought by me with my own money. So today, I'm going to show you the 5 new features that I think actually make a difference, all of the pitfalls that I've found so far, and good lord, are there some? Then, of course, I'll answer whether or not you should be spending your money on it as a beginner FPV drone. First of all, let's start off with the good. I spent all afternoon yesterday and, well, as much of today as possible testing out every feature of the drone with every type of control method as well. From all this testing and flying, I've found that there are 5 things I think are genuinely amazing for beginners, and also just some features that are downright brand new and a whole lot of fun. The first feature is the fact that it nails one of the fundamental downfalls that the DJI Avata 2 had at launch. You see, fresh out the box, whether you buy it as a standalone drone or the Fly More combo, you're able to fly the Neo with not 1, not 2, not even 3, but 6 different control methods. Oh, that is just insane to say out loud. Now, the reason that 6 control methods is such a bloody positive is thanks to the fact that it means everybody will already have a compatible control method, no matter who they are. No controller at all? No worries, you've got hand launching with automatic flying, or if you have a phone, you could also use the Wi-Fi controls on that within a bit of a limited range. Snag the Fly More combo? Cool, now you can fly the Neo like a standard DJI photography drone. But what if you already own a DJI photography drone like the Mini 4 Pro or the Air 3? Well, great news. This is where you get to use your RC2 controller directly with the Neo. Then, this is the part of the compatibility that has me just the most excited. Straight out of the box, you can fly the Neo with the FPV RC3 and the Goggles 3 in the normal, sports, and of course my absolute favorite, full manual FPV mode. Now, I do realize that most beginners are not going to have either the FPV RC3 or the Goggles 3, so why the heck am I even mentioning it? Well, about 8 years ago, I picked up my very first drone, the DJI Mavic Pro, and after about 4 years, I found FPV drones and went through a hell of a journey to get to where we are right now. But what would have been insane to me is to have owned my original Mavic Pro drone and have then picked up this little Neo on its own to help me transition into FPV. I would have been able to fly it with my normal controller, then when I felt ready, could have picked up the FPV RC3 and the Goggles 3 to start playing around with it in first person. This is actually kind of what I expect those of you who A, love drones already, B, have got a newer DJI drone at home, and C, want a fun, smooth transition into FPV. I imagine that's what you guys are all going to want to do. Of course, at this stage, I have missed out on mentioning the Motion 3 controller, but look, if I'm being honest here, I think this is the most useless control option for this drone. You would be so much better off going for an FPV RC3 so that you actually still get the normal and sports mode, similar to that of the standard controllers, but you also get the exciting option to move forward to manual FPV mode at some point in time. The Motion 3 controller just kind of puts you in a bit of a pickle, so honestly, unless you're borrowing one off of a friend, I would probably recommend that you don't buy into this one. That then moves us on to the second feature that is pretty damn amazing for beginners. Take a look at this footage here and tell me what the difference is between the two. I'll give you 2 more seconds. Alright, ready? Okay, as you might have guessed, one appears to be stabilized horizontally while the other is not at all. It gets even more interesting though when you find out that I didn't change any settings, nor did I apply any form of stabilization, and there is absolutely no horizontal gimbal axis at all. So, how the heck is one different from the other? To show you how, you first need to understand why it's happening, and honestly, this is super smart of DJI. I really do feel like they've put a bit of thought into this part. On most standard photography drones, there is a 3-axis gimbal that allows the physical stabilization of the camera in all directions. It's similar to that of a chicken head. Essentially, this allows the drone to move in any direction it needs to while still being able to keep the camera completely level or locked onto a subject without having to change the actual orientation of the drone. On the flip side to that, however, drones like DJI's Avata series and even the original DJI FPV only have a single axis gimbal that allows the camera to tilt up and down, but that's it. It makes it so when you're flying FPV, you actually feel connected to the drone, can understand if it's flying upside down or not, and it gives you that super immersive feeling. The up and down gimbal tilt on these drones is mainly just for adjusting the amount of angle the camera has, or if you're flying in one of the standard or sport FPV modes, it'll keep the camera tilt steady for you as well. So because the Neo is being sold as a photography drone and an FPV drone in one, DJI have had to do something interesting here. They've taken their horizon balancing stabilization, which we've already seen in the Avata 2 and Osmo Action 4, and automatically applied it to the Neo whenever you're not flying with the FPV RC3 or the Motion 3. So any modes that call for normal photo or video from the drone have got horizon balancing applied, and any FPV modes do not have it applied by standard and instead allow you to see the horizontal tilt of the drone. This way, if you're already semi-used to flying a normal drone, the Neo isn't going to feel like some massive shock to the system where it starts tilting side to side, so I actually think it's a great thing. The third feature is all to do with the camera yet again, but I'm not talking stabilization here, I'm talking quality. Sure, it has 4K resolution, but if we're being honest here, 4K can look like this or this, so that number really doesn't matter to me at all. Actually, as a matter of fact, we need to have a chat about the camera quality again in the pitfalls section, but probably not for the reason that you might be thinking. For now though, why the heck is such a mediocre camera quality being talked about in the good part of the video? Well, it's simple really. When I first started flying FPV drones nearly 4 years ago, this was the video quality that I was recording with. Better yet though, this is the quality of video that I was actually seeing through my FPV goggles, and that drone setup cost me about $600, not including the goggles or remote. So to see something like the Neo come out at about $180 and provide better quality not only in the recording, but also in the goggles experience is just insane value to me. Now, I get it, it's not going to blow your socks off, and it's certainly not going to win any awards for the quality, but if you just want to video your friends at the bike park or take some shots while you're out on a walk with your family, this quality is going to be more than good enough, especially once you fix the pitfall that comes with it, but we'll talk about that very soon. Alright, the fourth feature that is fantastic for beginners is all to do with how much it hurts. And no, I'm not meaning how much it hurts physically, although I can confirm that it doesn't really hurt at all. Not sure how I would know that though. But no, for real, as someone who has been in the position of having a very small budget to get started in FPV with, this is usually the kicker, the price. You absolutely can get the more expensive Fly More combo for $320 like I have, but realistically, I don't think that most people would actually need that. Instead, if you're already convinced that this is definitely the drone for you, just try opting for the $180 Neo with an extra $35 battery or two to start out. That way, it's not going to hurt your wallet too much, or your head for that fact. Now, for the fifth and final good feature before we dive head first into the pitfalls of the Neo, it's this. No, like seriously, look at this. The fact that I can hold this entire drone in one hand and know that it can fly just like this is epic. Taken alongside that too is the fact that this thing is just stupidly lightweight, which brings more positives than you might be thinking right now. My biggest gripe with DJI's recent Avata 2 is the fact that if you smash one of those things into the ground, they're gonna break, and that's gonna be that. It's one of the biggest reasons I will rarely ever recommend that a complete beginner picks up an Avata 2, but so you might be thinking, with the Neo taking the same approach of an all-in-one unfixable drone, what's its saving grace? Well, that ridiculously lightweight design becomes the biggest lifesaver, as honestly, no matter how hard I've crashed this thing, it has so far gotten back up again consistently and just continued onwards. In saying that, if you sent it straight into a brick wall, yeah, I'm pretty certain it's gonna break, and no, I will not be testing that. Thank you. Seemingly good durability aside though, the fact that there are no required controls or equipment that you actually need to bring along with you to fly makes the size and weight an even bigger selling point for anyone who just wants to travel light. Okay, so up until this point, nearly all of the videos that I have personally watched on YouTube about the DJI Neo have just been from creators who were sent the drone for free. Now, as always, I still respect them for seizing that opportunity, and this is by no means me accusing anyone of being dishonest. However, as I said in my first impressions of the Avata 2 video, I truly believe that no matter what, if you get sent something for free, there is always going to be a small level of bias as you simply haven't had to spend the money yourself. So that being said, and this DJI Neo here being bought with my own money, it's time to dive headfirst into the pitfalls. And I'll be honest, I don't think I've heard about some of these pitfalls anywhere else yet. Pitfall number 1. There's that classic saying that goes like, you can be a jack of all trades, but you'll always be a master of none, and I feel like that describes the Neo really damn well. It's obvious that it's not trying to be the best camera drone or the best FPV drone either. If anything, it's taking a stab at some of those autonomous flying drones like the Hover X1 and stuff, but I really don't know anything about them, so I'm going to leave that side of things to other reviewers. But it doesn't come close to normal photography drone camera quality for photos or videos. It's not even in the same realm of flight capability for FPV flying like the Avata 2 is, and thanks to being the lightest weight drone DJI has ever made, it doesn't handle wind very well either at all. In fact, there have been multiple instances now where I've been flying with the sticks fully forward and the drone just simply cannot move forward because of the wind. I'll give it the fact that it is super windy here. Like, I'm not talking it's a little breeze. It is really windy, but it's also the same amount of wind that I know other drones like the Avata 2 or Mini 4 could probably handle. Pitfall number 2. Speaking of control, when flying specifically in full FPV manual mode, my goodness, are there some limitations. It doesn't take much before you totally max out the motors, even at a small 15-degree camera angle. The yaw issue from the OG Avata is back even more than before, and the level of confidence that this thing gives you while flying is, not very much. If you've ever flown another drone before, you've got to be brutally aware that this does not have much power and coming to a stop isn't as instantaneous as you might like it to be. I've tried to do some more power-intensive moves, but similar to that of an underpowered Tiny Whoop, it starts to drop super quickly out the sky and then it just doesn't have the juice to pull itself back up fast enough. Thankfully, DJI have still included the pause button functionality on the FPV RC3, so if in doubt, no matter what mode you're in, just hit the pause button and the drone is going to come to a stop. But yeah, having such a low output on the motors and only using a lithium-ion battery over a LiPo makes it abundantly clear that the Neo does not have very much power going to it at all. To put a little spin on that though, that actually could be a good thing for a beginner, as they just aren't going to be able to send it straight up 100 meters and then drop it back down out the sky. So yeah, I don't know, maybe it's a good thing. Pitfall number 3. Based on my first positive thing that I had to say about this drone, the compatibility, I have to admit it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. On one hand, yes, you were given so many options and it's truly a blessing that DJI have finally managed to launch an FPV drone with more than one compatible controller. Take that, Avata 2. But on the other hand, it also means there's a bunch more stuff that you need to buy if you want the different flight methods. You can't just buy an FPV RC3 as your main controller, because then you also need to buy the Goggles 3 as well, otherwise it doesn't connect. So if you want to fly FPV with it, there goes another $700. If you don't have any recent DJI drones with an RC2 controller and want to fly it as a photography drone, then bam, there goes another $140 to get that Fly More kit. What's that? For some reason you want to fly with the Motion 3 controller? I don't know why. Well, again, you'll need the Goggles 3 and the Motion controller, so say goodbye to another $580. No matter what avenue you take, you're always going to find yourself spending more money to get more functionality out of the drone. Of course, if you're sure that you want to commit to the Goggles 3 for other FPV drones like I have, then hey, maybe it's not actually a terrible option, but if you're still uncertain, then there are definitely cheaper ways to test out the FPV waters. Pitfall number 4. Earlier, I mentioned that the camera quality was going to come up in the pitfalls part, but probably not for the reason that you might expect. That's this part now. So we've already discussed the fact that it's not an amazing camera. However, there is a way to make it so much better, half of which we can control, the other half of which only DJI can change. Classic. The first half is caused by the fact that DJI shipped these drones with the sharpening cranked to infinity. Like, it is so high that it just ruins the footage immediately and leads to people saying, oh my god, the quality is so awful. Reality is, if you head into the settings and change the sharpening to the lowest setting, you actually manage to resurrect the quality quite a lot. I personally also like to drop the noise reduction by -1, but this is just so things don't get too mushy for me. You can probably see pretty damn clearly that the difference the sharpening is making is not in a good way at all. So I have no clue why DJI is shipping this out to beginners with little camera experience with some of the worst default settings around. But anyways, I digress. The second half of this issue comes down to the little setting that is locked off by DJI. Exciting, right? Usually, on pretty much every other DJI drone, there is always the option to change out the normal color mode to something a little flatter and less saturated like the OG Avata. Decent, you like. This setting allows a bit of extra flexibility with post-processing, and also just allows those with a little more experience to be able to tweak the footage that little bit more. The Neo, however, doesn't have this option, and I can only hope that they're going to update this in the future so hobbyist photographers and videographers get a bit of additional post flexibility to just make their shots exactly how they want them. There's really no good reason not to have this. Anyways, that now brings us to the question I'm sure that you're very curious to know. Should you actually buy this brand new drone? Look, I'm going to split this answer into two sides because yes, I do believe that this is actually a great buy for some people right now, but equally, I think that there are much better options for others. And let's be real, you probably don't want to be one of those people that buy the Neo and just could have been better off buying something else, do you? Probably not. Okay, so first of all, who is this drone not for? I'm going to keep it short and sweet. If you want a first drone for going out and taking cool photos or video, this is not for you. Nor is it for you if you've got other FPV drones already. So then with that in the back of your mind, who is this drone actually for? Firstly, if you've got a DJI drone already and have been wanting to try FPV out for the longest time, then I seriously think that just buying the Neo on its own is gonna be an amazing first stepping stone. Yes, you are absolutely gonna outgrow it, but at the end of the day, even if you do, you can still use it as a controller-free drone to just bring along on trips out like I'm planning on doing, and doesn't cost much either, so in the grand scheme of things, you've got that there too. Secondly, if you don't have a controller already and just want a bit of a jack-of-all drone that you might be able to sort of try out FPV with at some point in the future, the Fly More combo is also another really good buy. Then thirdly, if you don't have a controller yet, but you know that you want to dive headfirst into the DJI ecosystem with DJI O3, the Avata series, then buying the DJI Goggles 3, the FPV RC3, and the standalone Neo is actually a really solid avenue to take as well. Supposedly, there might be a budget pair of DJI FPV goggles coming out at some stage in the next few months, but I haven't personally seen or heard much about them, so at this stage, don't hold your breath on future speculation. But look, if this little guy isn't quite what you've been looking for though, don't stress. There is a high chance that the bigger, better, and badder drone called the DJI Avata 2 is actually for you. I've made a complete deep dive video that is essential to watch before you buy that though, as it still has its pitfalls too. And yeah, it happens to offer some, well, very different ones to that over the Neo. We'll see you over there shortly.